All right, everybody, welcome. We are so glad to have all of you here joining us. If we've never met before, my name's Adam Bieber, and I'm the Director of Business Development here at LogicSpeak. And we are so glad that you guys are here live for this webinar. Thank you so much for carving out time on a Friday to spend a little bit of time with Don and myself. Want to just make sure, can you guys hear me okay? Thumbs up from the crowd. Awesome. Great. And can you guys see us all right? Sweet. Awesome. And do you see the presentation that says Welcome to AI 101? Excellent. Awesome. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Well, we're going to jump in. A couple of housekeeping items. If you guys don't mind, because there's so many people in here, and we wanted to make sure, what you guys can't see is there's a screen opposite Dawn and myself, and we actually have all of your faces up there on the screen, those of you that have your cameras on. So for us, it feels like we're just all in a room together. But because of that, we have the dynamic of you being able to unmute yourself in the middle of the presentation. So if you guys wouldn't mind, stay on mute through the presentation. If you got questions, use the chat. I'm going to be monitoring from my iPad. You'll see LogicSpeak notes there as well. And then at the end, if we have a little bit of time, we are going to do a little live Q&A with Don as questions come up. And chances are your question might actually get answered as we go along. So if all is well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So I wanted to share a little bit about LogicSpeak, just in case you're joining this call and you don't really know a whole lot about who we are. We are a managed IT and cybersecurity company. We have clients all over the Southeast, primarily in Georgia. And like I said at the beginning, we are recording live from our office, what I'm calling now the LogicSpeak Studios, which is one of the rooms that we've transformed into this amazing space. And our mission is simple. We want to use our abilities and technology to have a positive impact on the lives of our clients, employees, and community. So you did not need to be a client to be a part of this webinar because you're a part of the community. And so we're excited to have so many faces here and so many people representing different businesses, different organizations, and just different people because you guys are part of the community that we care and love about so much. Here's a brief agenda for the day. Our hope is to be here for about an hour and 5 minutes. I think the calendar invite was an hour and 15. Hopefully we can give you guys back a little bit of time. Dawn and I are going to do a little bit of just a couple of quick introductions. We're going to jump into the fundamentals of AI. From there, we're going to pivot into AI agents and explore some possibilities with building automated workflows and using AI agents to help execute redundant tasks. We're going to get to see a demo of Microsoft Copilot. Don's actually going to do a walkthrough demo of that. We've got a little surprise at the end that we haven't put in the agenda, and then we are going to do a little Q&A. So a little bit real quick, I already mentioned at the beginning, but if you joined a little late, my name's Adam Bieber, and I am the Director of Business Development here at LogicSpeak. Super excited to have you guys joining us. This is the inaugural LogicSpeak Studios event. And so thank you for being part of this. And I did want to let you guys know that after this presentation, probably next week sometime, I'm going to email you the recording of this webinar, the slide deck that we're using, and then a couple of bonus pieces of content for you. So feel free to take notes, but don't worry if by chance you don't get to capture a screenshot or get all the notes down. We're going to make sure you have all of these slides promptly next week. Don, welcome to this AI webinar. Thank you for being so patient while I get us started here. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Morron from HighlandTech. We really appreciate you being here. Don, would you mind introducing yourself, saying a few words before we get started?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just so excited to be here. The production quality is amazing. Adam and LogicSpeak does not disappoint. So as Adam mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of HighlandTech. So we're an AI automation agency. And what we do is we solve the problem of repetitive and mundane tasks through something called AI agents, which we'll go into later in the presentation. And yeah, I think a lot of it today is we want to enrich you with some new knowledge, hopefully. And then maybe perhaps get some next steps to meet with you one-on-one post the webinar.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we're going to give you guys actually the ability to book a meeting with Don if anything in this presentation jumps out at you and becomes relevant for something that you want to tackle in your business. So, Don, I wanted to start with this quote because I came across it, and you and I actually had a conversation about the work that Fifi Lee does. She's a part of the Stanford Institute of Human-Centered AI. And the quote's awesome. It's profound. It says, "The future of artificial intelligence is not about man versus machine, but rather man with machine. Together, we can achieve unimaginable heights of innovation and progress." When you hear that, how much does that fire you up?
A ton, right? I see that AI will give us an abundance of so many things. And I think one of the things, especially Adam and I've talked about outside of this session, is creating a new opportunity for human connection and getting us out of this repetitive and mundane things that we've collected over the years, right? And so Fifi's certainly no exception. She's actually one of the early adopters of something called spatial AI, and that's basically 3D AI intelligence. And so she's really on the cutting edge stuff. So when this comes from her, I know it's good.
Yeah. And I love that perspective. I think it's awesome that you briefly shared it. It's a great conversation you and I have had. We were made for human connection. And so if we can pick ourselves up out of the mundane, repetitive tasks that a lot of times bog us down in our day-to-day, how much more of an opportunity to connect face-to-face and build more human interaction. So I love that. Well, let's dive in, man. AI fundamentals, and I'm going to let you kick us off because this is your thing. So jump in.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to do my best to do this in the most engaging way possible, right? So to be clear, artificial intelligence is a data science. This is complicated stuff, and some of what I'm going to show you will explain things that are under the hood, but I want to encourage you that these are things you don't necessarily need to know unless you're building your own AI models, and very, very few companies are going to do that, right? But I think it's important to understand that this is not just a enigma, right? Like, this is math that allows these things to work and do things, and hopefully I'm going to uncover that for you in the next 10 minutes. So this slide just basically represents the fact that it's likely no surprise that AI is kind of a big deal. You know, we are likely approaching a fifth industrial revolution. You're seeing the investment that's happening. You probably feel what's happening in the media, and your gut's right. And this is a big change. And so I think the big thing is creating urgency with you and your organization to do something about it now. At least start educating at the minimum, and then start to plan for what you'll do next. And companies like LogicSpeak and HighlandTech create a great combination of that because in my personal experience with AI is that the next closest thing, really, I would say in parallel, that's just as important is cybersecurity and data protection, right? Yep. And that's what their firm is really great at. So I think that's why we make a good mix. But I just put the slide up just to show you and remind you in case you needed to know that AI is a big deal. So. And this just shows that it's in demand, right? These are stats. I'm a Microsoft reseller, you know, so is LogicSpeak. And we know, and I think you know, that everybody is using these things. About 7 or 8 out of 10 people are using a generative AI tool. ChatGPT, when that got released, if you've heard of this thing, probably, I'm sure, they got, I think, like 100 million users within a fraction of a time that it took the biggest social media companies. And so people are experiencing the value. Now, really, what do we do next, right? Like, how do we put AI to work in our businesses to get value? And that's really what we're talking about today. So this just goes over some high-level definitions, right? Think about AI as a concept. It's an overarching concept that includes higher levels of artificial intelligence. The first one being machine learning. The second one being deep learning. And then under deep learning is generative AI. And we'll break down each one of these. So artificial intelligence, and I stole this from MIT where I got 80-hour certificate from. And what they define artificial intelligence is simply a machine that mimics human intelligence and behavior, right? So it's basically trying to mimic the neurons in the human brain. That's it. But underneath that, there's more specific, starting with is machine learning. So machine learning is a machine that automatically learns from data with respect to a particular task and performance measures. Beyond that is deep learning. Just think about, you know, where machine learning has less neurons and deep learning has more neurons, right? We're just basically taking machine learning and like 100x in it or something like that. And so deep learning by definition is a subset of machine learning that happens via algorithms inspired by neural networks of the human brain. Some more continuation of the same. But now we get into this ChatGPT stuff, right? Like, what's all the buzz about? And really what ChatGPT is, and OpenAI that made it really did a great job naming it. They named it ChatGPT, but GBT is a deep learning architecture that is the most used for these, what they call large language models, which is basically the things when you use ChatGPT, how it knows how to respond to you, right? And so, but that GBT means something, and it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. I'm going to break that down for you for the next slide, but basically this is a state-of-the-art deep learning model that uses transformers. So chat, pretty simply, it means chat. It's just a way to interact with AI. There's a lot of other ways to interact with AI through voice. AIs can do multimodal, so they look at images and, not just text. They can look at video, all kinds of things, right? But chat is what that basically means. Then you have generative. So generative, again, is that class of deep learning AI models that are trained to generate data modalities and different ways that humans understand them. And I just mentioned a few. And then we get pre-trained. So when you use these large language models, these GBT, it's pre-trained with a lot of information, millions, trillions, whatever, right, of information. And basically, this is the type of training technique used for these AI models where the model may be trained from scratch on large initial sets of data, and this pre-trained model is then further fine-tuned to customize for different specific tasks. So we call that in the AI development world post-training. But that's not what you would do. That's something like HighlandTech would do. In order to make the model work for your business, know how to react to your customers, things like this. And then lastly is Transformer. So Transformer is the architecture of the AI. And this is a new class of deep learning models based on the idea of attention is self-attention. And then with text transformers, understanding the relationship with one word with the other words in the sentence. And so really what these things do is they're predicting the next word in a sentence. They call it tokens. But if you remember what I said earlier when we started, is that AI is just math, right? Every word is given a number. And then every word that correlates to another word is just a number that correlates to another word number, right? And these are all things that AI is picking up on patterns based on its pre-trained data set, right? So this breaks down transformers more, right? And this is kind of what I just left with. I think the big thing here that's kind of cool is that transformers have these encoders and decoders. And the decoder is responsible for generating data such as text. And so the idea with the transformers is a really key building block in large language models. And so what I wanted to do was illustrate what these things look like. And this is the last bit of sausage bacon, I promise. So let's go and click on the first one. So this is an input. Every neural network has an input. And then they also have an output. You can click. Right? Makes sense. How we think as people when we read left to right is this, right? I put an input, I get an output. It's like I put in some effort and I get my outcome that I want. Straightforward so far. Next. Underneath that, or in between that, is a hidden layer. That's where a lot of the magic happens. That's how a lot of the AI picks up its inferences, makes its decisions, and how it detects its patterns. Before it does that, it hits a parameter initialization. And a parameter, next, is basically all those little dots represent like a artificial neuron. In between those dots to the next section is where weights and biases exist. And every weight and bias that exists is a parameter. And I'll tell you something towards the end of why that's a big deal. Now, as these AIs think, like we talked about, they go from left to right, let's just say, simply. It's called a forward propagation. But when we want to reduce error rates in the AIs, we call them hallucinations. We want them to be effective and not make up things. We can also include something called a backward propagation. And that enhances the AI, like I said, to perform at its best. But one thing that's interesting, when you use these things that cost you, let's say ChatGPT or a Copilot that's very affordable, you are pinging a model that, you can click on the next one, that the average large language model is 100 billion parameters. So if you remember back to that weight and bias between those neurons, that's 100 billion plus parameters of what you're using. And the average cost for a large language model, by the way, according to San Francisco, I went to a trip last year, they said at least $100 million. For the low price of a Copilot license, you're going to be able to use this, right? So I think that's the point, is appreciation for the engineering and the pre-training that's gone into this to give you accessible intelligence from anywhere. Yeah.
Well, I'm relieved that we don't have to figure out how to build it.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're here to do. And I'm sure that's not what you want to do in your world or in your business. And so we're going to start to pivot a little bit here and get practical. So let's start with AI agents. This is exactly what HighlandTech does for their customers. And so, Don, walk us through the engineering and kind of the story behind what an AI agent is and what it does and how it can be leveraged for day-to-day business.
Absolutely. So I think first let's start off with what they are, right? So an AI agent, put simply from Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, founder and CEO of OpenAI, he just said it's AI assistants that go and do stuff for you, right? And the analogy I use is, imagine you have an employee that's just super smart, right? But they don't do anything. That's not really a useful employee. You know, we need action. We need results. And so what happens with the defining characteristics that make agents different is their ability to take action. But there are some more things that make them even better. And actually, some things that happen over the last 5 to 6 months that make them shockingly much better than things that we used even before, a couple months before that. And so beyond the ability to take actions across, different lines of business, different applications, you also have the ability to ground these agents in your company knowledge. So if you remember, we mentioned post-training. So post-training is what happens when we want to take these large language models that know how to have a natural conversation, and be able to work within my company, right? After all, if I'm hiring these like quote unquote digital workers, I want them to be my digital worker, not someone else's. And so we need to ground them. That's how Microsoft calls it, in your company knowledge and your enterprise data. So whether it's SharePoint, whether it's, just an Azure instance of data you want to use, entirely up to you. Then something I'm super excited about was logic. And so logic, they look at it in a couple of ways, but in the most simple way from Microsoft is they look at it from a conversation orchestration. So what we don't want is to give these agents a complete autonomy through a whole business process. And instead we can decide where that autonomy happens. But to give it that level of trust, it needs to be able to have reduction of error rates or hallucinations. You remember the backward propagation thing I mentioned before. Yep. And so just about 5 to 6 months ago, we got introduced into these things called large reasoning models, or LRMs. And the difference between that and a LLM, a large language model, basically, is that they break down what you're trying to do in pieces and try to solve those pieces individually to come up with the next best step to do. And what they've saw through their bench testing, which is not like real world testing necessarily, sure, but what it shows is the improvements of the model is that the error reduction is like sub 1%, right? So that's really impressive. And they're getting smarter, they're getting faster, and they're getting cheaper. And that's what a agent has. It has the ability to use those reasoning models in order to enhance its ability to be effective. And then the last one was channels. So channels is just where you would effectively, publish your agent. So whether it's in Microsoft Teams and Slack, it's on your website, it's on your telephone system, however you want it to interact with your internal, external customers.
It's great.
So the problem that these agents solve are repetitive, mundane tasks. Punchline, period, over. If it's not repetitive, you're probably not going to pay for it. Again, these things are meant to deliver high value to a company. And high value is something that first I want to take off my plate that's repetitive and something I really, really don't like to do.
Sure.
And so let me share the vision that's coming out of big tech, right? I've been in the AI community now for 2 years, and I went to San Francisco, New York last year for the 2 top AI engineering conferences. I've got an AI leading podcast within the industry I primarily serve. I read and write about this, it feels like every day, et cetera, right? But the point that I'm trying to explain to you is coming from like the Microsofts and the IBMs and, the Googles and the Amazons is this vision, is that there will be more of these agents than people in the world, and Meta is included too. And that people, this is going back to your quote from Fifi, will be orchestrators of these agents. Imagine a world where you have 30 agents at your bidding, and they will be retrieval-based agents, and which I'll go over here in a bit, and then also task-based agents. The ones that don't need human intervention, they're called autonomous agents. But that's a big deal, right? If you ever heard the quote where it says Harvard came from Harvard Business School, Business Review, they said that AI won't replace your job, but the person that knows how to use AI will. I don't know that they knew that this was what they meant, but this is definitely related to that. And here's a little bit what that looks like. So the first stage, and we're doing this today with Microsoft Copilot Studio and a few of our other partners, is giving users the ability to call on a single agent to do something, right? This is a retrieval or task-based agent. Retrieval, it brings something to me. A good example is like an HR agent. So if I need for my whole company, so instead of asking the HR manager a million times, what's the vacation calendar, what's our HR policy around this topic, I have the agent that can just retrieve that information and tell me, no big deal. Now, expand that a little bit into like IT. I need to resolve a technical support issue. It's retrieving a knowledge base to help me understand how do I resolve a technical support issue. But what it could also do is create a service ticket on my behalf as a user. Let's say that if the service ticket did not get resolved in that time, that is a task, also retrieval and task-based agent, right? And these agents are things that you will be able to call on in the future. And then in the future, probably not so near future, the far away future, is these agent managers. And they will act as orchestrators. So the Microsoft AI tour I just got back from a couple days ago, the way they break these down is utility agents. So these are the single task-based agents that do one thing really well. Super agents that will call on a couple of these, and then these orchestrator agents. But this is the vision that's come out of tech. And so the good news is we should see a hyper productivity era coming up fairly soon. And this is that spectrum of agents I was just talking about, right? Anywhere from retrieval to autonomous. Autonomous being the most complicated, retrieval being the most simple. And I wrote up this slide because I think it's important to mention that don't worry about your job, right? Like the point is that humans have a ton of value, and they'll continue to have a ton of value in the business place. But I think what happens is when you run into highly repetitive tasks that are low impact, those are where AI agents can absolutely serve the need. A good example of that is, let's say I'm at a conference, and instead of having my regular outgoing message, say I'm at a conference for a couple of days and I'll get back to you when I get back to you, I can have an agent just respond to that person based on their message that they sent me. And then I can take it a step further where, let's say it's a customer that has a technical support issue, right? And I could have the agent pick up on that semantics, that context, and then forward that email over to maybe my inside technical support team or something, right? That's a low impact thing. It's important, but it's a low impact thing because I'm not making like a purchasing decision. A high impact thing, which is on the other end of this, would be like, I need to order inventory. So, so maybe the agent can make a suggested list of inventory to order for the inventory manager or whatever, stock manager, but presents that stock manager with a list of suggested products to purchase based on their inventory state. So it's not buying the products, but it's presenting that to the employee to say, hey, I just went and did 60% of the work for you. Now you can finish up.
Yeah. Data mining, analyzing, curating, and then presenting.
Exactly.
Not necessarily taking over the final decision making. That's 100%. Great. That's great.
But there are some issues, right? I think in practice, what you find doing this is that there's budget and time constraints. There's infrastructure and resource hosting issues. There's integration of business system issues. There's technical expertise issues, security and compliance issues. This is where LogicSpeak is going to be huge with that. And then maintaining content, right? Making sure people have access to privileged information based on their role within the company.
Yeah.
There's also another issue when it comes to small, medium businesses. So when you look at enterprise and medium companies, enterprises, by the way, have been pouring money into agents, okay? Even I think Shopify CEO came out just a few days ago, and I posted this on LinkedIn today.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he just said that don't go hire more people unless you can figure out, make sure you can figure out, like, can AI do that or not, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what that shows is that the importance of employees being able to recognize where AI can be used. And I think it's a glimpse into the way a lot of leadership people will probably start to think. And so it's good for enterprises because they get on board. They got a bunch of money, right, to build these proprietary agents. And then when it comes to medium-sized companies, they outsource to like professional consulting firms like Deloitte, McKinsey, Accenture, right? And those people walk them through the process. But what about small, medium businesses? And then technically a small, medium business is anything less than $100 million. They're not there yet, right? And I find that that's a problem, especially if this is the real fifth industrial revolution, right? But there is hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the hope is that, and this is coming out of Microsoft, and I agree with this 100%, is that we solve that by building on platforms, low-code platforms to be specific. We do low-code platforms to build agents because the cost goes down, the speed to delivery goes down. It's all built within your data, right? So if your data is a little messy and stuff, hey, the agent, can pick it right up if it's built within the knowledge graph of Microsoft, right? So there's a lot of great positives with that. Everybody else does the pro code, expensive things, but the good news is with these platform building capabilities, we're able to bring this down to a price that small businesses can't afford. And so think of it almost like an agent factory, right? This is where people will interact with these agents through a platform. So Microsoft calls that Copilot Studio. We use a couple other platforms with IBM, Watson X, and some other things. But this is, we always want to encourage a customer to be able to use a platform to build these agents. I'll give you another reason why that's really important. Because eventually these agents will cross-pollinate. If you remember the slide that showed I can call on multiple agents at one time, or I need a call on a manager agent that orchestrates other agents. Well, the agents need to be able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
If they're on a different system, I mean, maybe there'll be a solution for that, I'm sure, but now you're buying something else, right? As instead you buy into one ecosystem. And when it comes to business, what better one, who has their hands into business software more than Microsoft and Google?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much it, right? If you think about it.
So
it's either Gmail or Outlook.
Let me ask you a question then. For HighlandTech, like if we're sitting here wondering, where do you guys build your AI agents?
Yeah, so we use Microsoft Copilot Studio a lot. We also use some alternative forms if customers need to host them on-prem, because Copilot Studio is just a pure cloud play.
Yeah.
But yeah, we push that.
That's awesome. Okay, good deal.
And so this is the message coming from Microsoft's CEO, right? That the belief that every person will have an AI companion like a Copilot, and a Copilot is the demo you'll get today, and then every business process will have a agent. Hence, that's what we focus on building at HighlandTech.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's time to look at it. Like I'm itching to see how Copilot, as an example, can do different repetitive, mundane tasks, or just help speed up processes for day-to-day business operations and just the way you function throughout your day. So I'm going to hit pause on my screen share. I'm going to let you jump in and take over here and walk us through this. Hopefully you guys are learning a ton and still engaged. Like I said at the beginning, if you got questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We are doing well on time, so we may have a little bit more time to engage with some of your questions live. But Don, as you get set up here, what exactly are we going to see here from Copilot?
All right, you can see my screen okay, I hope, for the audience.
Excellent.
Perspective. Good. Yeah, so what this is actually a click-through demo of Copilot if you were to get a Copilot license. And we did that because, one, we don't want to be too far on time, and then two, I think this is prepared from a Microsoft partner that makes these, so that way it quickly articulates the value of what Copilot can bring. And so this is purely your AI companion. This is not an agent, to be clear. This is your AI companion. And so this is a license that you would get as a user, and you'd be able to, increase your productivity through any number of applications they integrate with. So whether it's Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Teams is really cool. So there's a few pieces in the example that
Outlook
we'll see today.
For email.
Yes,
Yep.
Outlook.
Yep.
Yes. Well,
Fantastic.
a very important one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click this Bing browser, and we're going to go into Copilot. We're going to sign in. So what I'm presented with is a Copilot screen of how to first interact with this chat, right? If you remember ChatGPT, very similar interaction. And I'm saying compare the Northwind Thunderbolt e-bike specs with the top 3 e-bikes marketed in 2023 with a tabular summary using short descriptions and citations. So this might be you just trying to gather research information, preparing for a meeting, and then going from there. And you can see it starting to populate. One of the things, if you're curious like me, you probably start thinking back to that diagram with all the neurons and stuff. It's just snapping off, making its results. All right. So I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to open up the Copilot window on the side. I'm going to say transform the following text into tweets. So if you're on a marketing team and you need a way to quickly make social media posts, this is an awesome way to do that. I do that for my business. I don't write anything for mine, but if you need something like that, then that's available. I'm going to go ahead and say make them shorter. Maybe I want them more concise, not as elaborate. And you can change the tone with this too, right? Whether it's professional, concise, you can choose based on your prompt, or even short button actions.
So the difference here is it's not pulling from external data or other large language models. It's using what's in your Microsoft, exclusively your business Microsoft ecosystem, to then generate responses. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Microsoft uses OpenAI Azure. So this is something where they use a large language model, but all the post-training that gives you the results you're seeing is all grounded within your company data. Unless you decide you want to go to the internet, then you can decide to reach out to the internet, but the data remains grounded within your company graph. So it's never learning off your data. That's a big thing.
Yeah, that's a huge security piece that I think people are concerned about.
Huge. So if you go back to what we were talking about earlier, 7 out of 10 people, right, they bring their own AI to work. So first things first, right, especially from a cyber and data liability standpoint, is you want to use Copilot to get people off of using these these consumer grade tools that they're bringing, because you have no idea what they're going to put into that. So the best course of action is to give them a product that you can feel safe, that they can do whatever they want within it, and you're not going to have any issues about AI learning off your data or it getting into the wrong hands. All right, so I'm going to say, and this is a little bit of a cross demo if you were to have Copilot plus PC, which is a Microsoft product. All right. So now we're going to open up Teams, and this is a example team meeting. So I'm going to go to Copilot. I found that this was super helpful for me. If I've ever late to a meeting, I need to get caught up. If that's happened to anyone, it's happened to me.
Wow.
Instead of coming in and saying, hey, team, being rude and catch me up on what you just talked about in the last 15 minutes, I just have AI tell me to do it. Then I go and ask a question, right? So let's say based on the agenda that they need to figure out the inventory status. Well, I'm already going to recap it, and then I'm going to ask Copilot to say, hey, how did the team feel about it? So maybe they already came to a decision. Maybe they're talking about a different topic, or maybe they just haven't decided yet. And so at the moment that I interject, I'm fully caught up, right? Now I go into, I think you guys, that's on your screen.
Is that?
Yeah. I think I can still go in. That probably doesn't affect
keep
them.
going.
And so we go to what questions are unresolved. There we go. So it gives me a bit of information on what's going on. So now I'm going to open up Outlook. Summarize my emails. How many times you get bogged down with hundreds of emails in your inbox and you're just trying to catch up for the day and you just can't catch a breath? This is what we're doing here. Now I'm in Word. So Word, I'm going to say, I love this one. So a project proposal based on what? I'm going to tag some planning document. So let's say the team made a planning document memo, and I want to create a proposal based on that information. I simply say, make a project proposal, and I tag that document. Again, it picks it up because it's in my knowledge graph.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, makes sense. Wow.
I'm going to keep it. This is just scrolls up just to show you what it looks like. All right. And now this is pretty cool. In this section, I can choose that I want to add more. So let's say in this project scope, I want to add a little bit more to it. The AI can then just add that additional little bit in order to expand on that section. Let's say if I needed it. Let's open up PowerPoint. So I personally use this for my podcast. I had a beard mini series last year, and in that series, I made like PowerPoint slides from the AI events that I went to, and just some new things happening in AI. And I prompted PowerPoint with all the things I wanted to go over, and it did the whole PowerPoint. Now, granted, I'm very particular about my content, so it got me probably 60% of the way there.
Sure.
But that's the point, right? Is like, why do I need to do the 0 to 60 if it can get me there and I can just fine tune it? I get more time back. So that's exactly what we're seeing here. So I'm going to go ahead and, in this case, I'm uploading a file again, which is even cooler than a prompt in my opinion. So I upload a file. Let's see what it does from there. It's creating the slides. Boom.
Unbelievable. Anybody that's ever had to create graphics and, find stock images and do, tweak it and add your flavor and your branding and all of that. Dude, this is awesome.
Yep. All right. We're in Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and describe, say, don't show decimal points for the sales amounts. I've definitely used this a few times. The other week I used it to extract domains from emails into making their own websites, and it made the formula for me, and I just dragged and dropped it and was done in like seconds.
Wow.
Like, I don't know about y'all, but when I used to look for Excel formulas, the old Clippy was never worth it, right? I would go to Google and try to find it. Now It's built inside this, and so the copy and pasting, the researching, and the practicality of it now making the format for me. So if you think about it, it's kind of agentic or agent-like, but really this is just still your AI companion because it's doing something. Now I say mark in yellow any gross sales over $500,000. So instead of making a conditional formatting, I just talk to Copilot and it does it for me. This is excellent for anyone that's just had a really hard time picking up on Microsoft tools, right? So if you're just not a huge fan,
I'm raising my hand.
Or if you don't know how to use it, don't worry about it. You just talk to this thing, and it, and you kind of just does it for you, right? Show insights for my data. This is awesome. And you get a graph with my data. Boom. And then I can go ahead and add all insights to a new sheet. It's going to open a new sheet, add the insights. Oh man, I'm going to look like a pro for my next
presentation
management meeting, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're so smart. All right, perfect. So now let's go open up Teams again. What are the upcoming milestones for the project Rally Cloud? So again, when I ask questions that I don't even have to tag a document, it's going to see that Rally Cloud, and it's going to search my knowledge graph again. That's the power of using these tools, like even forgetting about it, just the ChatGPT capability where I have an AI I can talk to. Now I have an AI I can talk to that's grounded, again, in my company data. I can't say that enough, how important that is. So now it's going to search for information across that knowledge graph, and then there you go.
And that knowledge graph in this case is going to be SharePoint or something like it, right?
Exactly.
So let me ask you this question. If I ask it a question about the project Rally Cloud, and there's certain files that I have access to, but then there's also certain files that maybe have confidential data that I don't have access to, will Copilot still go get all of it?
Great question. So based on your current permissions that you have, Copilot will only give you that information.
Okay.
This is why this is important. Me and Adam talked about this. If you're looking to roll out Copilot, your first step is I got to make sure my data is right.
Yeah.
And that includes accessibility of that data, that your read-write privileges are for the right folks, because if it's not and everybody else has access to everything, well, what do you think is going to happen when they ask Copilot, what was our financials last month, right? So I think most customers, business customers, are set up there pretty well. But I think you certainly, at the very least, before you roll this out in a big way, you should get an audit from companies like LogicSpeak.
Yeah, yeah. We plan to help as we continue to roll this out. We help our clients to assess whether they're ready for an AI rollout. Maybe they test with an agent to get comfortable, but before we push it out to every single employee or the key, people that are going to be using it at a very high rate, we want to make sure that the privileged access management is in place, that they have the permissions and security in place, just to protect confidential data that's internal, but then also customer confidential data that might be living in different places.
Spot on.
Really
Spot
good
on.
stuff.
So now I'm going to say, what are the risks? So I'm continuing to ask, so it's got a memory. So a lot of people, like someone that builds agents, I can appreciate the work that Microsoft put here. So they're building in a memory, enough memory for it to follow your line of questioning, right? So that costs money. But again, for the price of a license, you basically get that capability within your company data. Now suggest some mitigations for these risks. So in this case, I don't know, if I'm a risk manager and I'm having this conversation with Copilot, it's helping me prepare maybe for a negotiation with leadership to try to push my agenda across the table, write a message to the team outlining the risk and mitigations.
Oh, wow. So right here in Teams, it's creating a template of something you could send via email outlining these discoveries that you've just made. Awesome. Subject line 2. How great. That's awesome.
And then now I'm going to say generate a SWOT analysis. Like how many of those in a business school, like I was tired of hearing about SWOT, So generate a SWOT analysis about the Rally Cloud project. There we go. My strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Now, and then in most cases, like I wouldn't just walk into a meeting and blindly start reading this. I probably would read through it, tweak it. But again, going back to the whole concept of it, if it can get you 60% of the way there or 80% of the way there, and then all you're doing is just fine tuning and making sure that it makes sense, how much more can you accomplish by allowing AI to help you get there?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur, and I have a lot of people reach out to me all the time. They're like, dude, I can't keep up with all the stuff you're working on. And they're like, how do you find the time? And I'm like, how do you think I find the time? Right? So like I use AI every single day in order to let me produce like I'm 3 of me, which is scary for my wife, thinking if there's 3 of me. So I think this is the conclusion here, Adam, of the Copilot demo.
Awesome.
Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, if you wouldn't mind hopping out of the screen share, I'm going to jump back in here. And we wanted to take this opportunity to show everybody just an example of what an AI agent in action does, practically speaking, in business. And so, Don, why don't you tee up this video? I know you kind of explained it in the opening of this video. And by the way, this is kind of the surprise that we had at the end, but tee this up for us. Let us know like what exactly we're about to see here.
Yeah, so I think what's not included in the explanation is this agent is built with an open source low code platform that we use. Again, we use many different platforms. It just depends on whatever makes the most sense for the customer. And this is a voice AI calendar agent, and it's task focused. And while its workflow might seem simple, the amount of neurons, right, that are built in and what's built with each one of those takes some work, right? And so what's fun is that you get to experience AI talking rather than just messaging. Both are cool, but talking to AI is kind of fun too. And I think the idea here is just to raise our awareness for the possibilities of what agents can do within businesses. More than just saying, well, I don't really need an AI voice calendar agent, right? Like I'm busy, but I'm not that busy or need someone to call my AI quite yet.
Sure.
But let's say I have a 100-person real estate firm, and that might be an example of something that I could use a voice AI calendar agent for, that has access to 100 of my real estate brokers, and that can coordinate based on their calendar availability. And anyone can hit that agent at any time of the day, as many times as they want, right? I mean, that is an example. But I want you to just encourage you, look at the video from the context of opening your awareness and your curiosity to the possibilities. Because when we do these workshops with customers, to figure out where do we start with an agent, if you remember from the chart, it's the repetitive and mundane, and we try to land with one thing that's super impactful. One of my favorite ones in any agent to build is what's very specific for your business. Whatever your business does, if that agent can align with that, rather than just like, I don't know, automating something in accounting, I get way more excited about those. But hey, we'll take whatever we can get
Sure.
at any point. But I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah. One thing I want to add is you produce this video to help drive awareness. I think you probably have already fine-tuned some of the responses and some of the things, because it is an AI voice agent. And so you guys are going to get to hear what that sounds like. And so be less critical of, oh, maybe the agent talks too much, or, you know, the response I maybe would tweak, but just think about what the possibilities could be for your business. So let's check this out. I'm going to hit play on this video. Esther, if you'll give me a thumbs up that you can hear it clearly, that'd be great.
All right, this is a demo of a calendar agent made by HighlandTech. So what you see on the screen to the far left is the agent workflow that will be live as I use it. In the middle, you'll see my Outlook calendar for HighlandTech, and then to the far right is just a Google Calendar that represents a customer's calendar. So basically what the workflow does at a high level is it's connected to a 1-800 number that I'm going to call, and it's going to be a voice AI agent. So there's that integration. And then you've got natural language understanding that's built in order to do the transcription in real time. And what it's going to do is it's going to gather my information as an agent, asking me for my contact information, my email. It's going to ask me what agenda I want. It's going to let the customer know about my availability, just as a calendar assistant would, right? In addition, what it's going to do is add a Teams link inside of the meeting invite and then add it to my calendar. So you're going to see this happen in real time with me. So hope you enjoy it.
Hello, thanks for calling HighlandTech. How can I help you?
Hey, I'd like to book a meeting.
Great. I'd be happy to help you book a meeting with Don. His availability is usually between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. What date and time would work best for you? And also, what time zone are you in?
Eastern Standard Time, and can we do tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.?
So you'd like to schedule for tomorrow morning, Thursday, March 13th at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Please hold on a second while I check Don's availability for tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm just pulling up his calendar now. I'm sorry, but Don isn't available tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. The closest times he has available are at 11:30 a.m., 12 p.m., or 12:30 p.m. tomorrow. Would any of those work for you instead?
Let's do 11:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Great. Don is available at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow. Could I get your first and last name for the booking, please?
Jim Smith.
Thanks, Jim Smith. Just to confirm I've got that right, is it Jim Smith with Jimsmith? I want to make sure I enter your name correctly for the booking.
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you. Could I please get your email address so I can send you a confirmation for this meeting?
Yes, it's spelled HIGHLAND.HLLC@gmail.com.
Thanks for that. So your email is highland.hlc@gmail.com. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I have the right address to send your meeting confirmation.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Now, could you please let me know what the agenda or purpose of this meeting with Don will be? This helps us prepare accordingly.
Yep. I would like to talk about getting AI agents for my business to automate my workflows. And I would like to understand the return on investment, high-level costs, time frame, and use cases.
Thanks for sharing that. So your meeting agenda is to discuss AI agents for your business, specifically focusing on workflow automation, ROI, costs, time frame, and potential use cases. Is that all correct? Just want to make sure I've captured everything accurately for Don.
That's right.
Perfect. Let me just confirm I have all the details for your meeting, date, and time. Thursday, March 13th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time name, Jim Smith. Email, highland.hlc@gmail.com. Purpose, discussing AI agents for business workflow automation, including ROI, costs, time frame, and use cases. Is there anything else you'd like me to add before I schedule this meeting with Don?
Nope, that's it.
Please hold on a second while I schedule your meeting. Great. Your meeting has been successfully scheduled for tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You'll receive a reminder 24 hours before the meeting and another 1 hour before it starts. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
I just want to say you're awesome.
Great. Have a nice day.
So there we go. So now let's go look at the calendars to see what we got. So this is my calendar at HighlandTech. I chose this format, which basically says the business name, then the customer's name, and the title. And then you open up the agenda and look at that. It's the agenda that I asked for. We go into the customer's calendar, and that's in Google, and we get the exact same thing, again, with the Teams link in both. It's a beautiful thing. Thanks for watching.
Wow. That is so stinking cool. It was actually wild to see it in real time. The calendar invites just pop up on both calendars. That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Don, any closing thoughts or remarks here as we land the plane and wrap up today?
Yeah, I just think if you haven't started your AI journey, there's no better time than right now, right? Schedule a meeting next week, with us, one of us or both of us to kind of figure out where you should go, where you should start.
Yep.
It's my role to stay as informed as I can to keep my AI as updated as possible, so that way customers are going in the right direction. There's a lot of FOMO happening, but I've aligned myself with big tech, and I think that's the right bet to make, because it becomes a lot less presumptuous and more objective when they have that kind of resources. They can decide what the future is going to look like. So I'm excited. I really appreciate the opportunity to get the chance to do this, and you guys have been a great partner. So yeah, certainly.
Yeah, man.
Happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, your investment in preparing for this, but then just also you constantly working hard to be an expert and stay on the cutting edge so that you can help all of us evolve with this exciting and also maybe slightly terrifying topic. So thank you. Just to quickly recap for everybody that's here, we're about to jump in. I see one question in the chat we're excited to answer in just a minute, but I wanted to remind you, we are going to send you a copy of this slide deck. The video will not be in that slide deck. Just to make it easy, I'm going to save it as a PDF, send you the slides that way. I'm going to send you a separate link for the video. I'm also going to send you a recording of this entire presentation so you can rewind and follow along with your with the slides. We're also going to include, Don and I actually did a podcast together for a podcast that I have called Synergetic Culture. It was a really fun interview, and it just gives you more backstory on who Don is and kind of where he came from, and a little bit of background about HighlandTech, maybe a little bit more in depth. And so you can watch that at your convenience if you would like. And then we may throw in some other fun things there for you. So just be on the lookout for that email coming from me next week, and we'll get those resources to you. So while we get ready to answer some questions, I wanted to throw these up here on the screen. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, I have follow-up questions, maybe not to put in chat, but follow-up questions for sure that I want to ask somebody. For the LogicSpeak clients that are in the room right now and watching this, your next step is to book a meeting with Ashley May. So send her an email and connect with her if you're an existing client. That'll be the fastest way for us to partner with you and help you figure out, okay, are you guys ready for AI? Should we go ahead and implement a Copilot license or a couple Copilot licenses? And then does it make sense to also engage HighlandTech for some agent development? So book a meeting with Ashley if you are an existing LogicSpeak client. If you're not, but you want to learn more about our philosophy, managed IT, cybersecurity, the services that LogicSpeak provides, you can use the QR code that I have there to book a meeting with me directly. Or if you just want to follow up on this webinar and ask a few more questions, I'd love to sit down with each and every one of you if time permits on both our calendars. So grab that QR code and book a meeting with me. And then finally, if you're like, hey, we're ready to roll, I've been thinking about this, I know I've got things I want to do on the agent side, book a meeting directly with Don. He would love to meet with you, sit down with you, answer any of the questions that you might have, if this kind of opened your perspective and horizons on what you could potentially do in your business. they're going to be able to help you and take care of you right there. So I'm going to grab my iPad here and turn to the notes. So Rajesh, you asked about pricing info, licensing on Copilot. So I think that's going to depend upon who owns your Microsoft 365 license. If it's through your business, if you own the business, I think it's $30 a month. I could be wrong on that, but I would just talk to whoever manages your Microsoft 365 account. If it happens to be us, then we'll help you with that. Or if you want it to be us, we can certainly help you with that, and just navigate what the pricing structure looks like and how it would get set up. Interested in hearing more about common uses for AI for business, especially in the medical field outside of clinical use. Don, any insight on medical field application for AI outside of the clinical use?
Outside of clinical use, a lot of examples I have is with the clinical use.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
As clinical is getting, but I can give you one that I've heard just from even some folks we've interacted with. So one of the things is medical terminology, being able to translate that in terms that all employees can understand. So as they work with their patients, as they work with their customers, or their vendors, whatever, as they translate these things, you make a simple retrieval agent, for example, and you can do this right in Copilot Studio. Actually, super simple to make. You can turn around one of these like in a day, no big deal, depending on the size of the medical dictionary. And and you can feed this into Microsoft Teams, so any employee that you want to have access to it can now be a translation pro for any medical term within your practice.
Interesting. Hopefully that helped turn the wheels a little bit, Jesse. We'll ask ChatGPT later, and I'll send you some more answers. I'm sure there's plenty. The next question that Joe asked was, how does Copilot protect against my data from being used outside of my environment? So could AI? I mean, I'm also asking this, like, even if I don't. Like if I have access to that data, could someone else outside of my organization, because they're using the same AI or companion, retrieve sensitive data specific to my organization?
No, because it all lives in your Microsoft tenant, so it only lives there. So when they deploy the AI models, they deploy them in multi-tenancy fashion. So you'll have your AI that lives in your tenant, your data remains in your tenant. The AI doesn't learn off of that. Yeah.
Two-part question here from Steven. It says, is there subject matter that provides guidance on how to view, manage, and control the automations created by Copilot users?
Yes. So first off, if we think about controlling automations, that first needs to start with their permissions. You need to decide who should have access to what, and that's where LogicSpeak can help, right? I think if we were to build an agent, it's funny this is coming up because I just wrote about this like yesterday on LinkedIn, was that a lot of people fear that agents will go rogue, and actually it's anything but that right now in practical use of it, meaning that it's a combination of business process automation, BPA, which Microsoft calls conversational orchestration. So you decide how the agent reacts in its workflow. You can be very specific. You could even just tell it. It's not even an AI thing, right? It's just Boolean logic. If I get this input or this trigger, you need to say this, right? The only time that you need to be concerned is when you give the agent autonomy in a decision. And really, that's still not a problem today, because if you remember back to what an agent is, it needs tools or actions, right? It takes actions as a part of its framework, its DNA. Well, those actions have tools, right? So they connect to a CRM, or they connect to a messaging service, they connect to a whatever, right? Ticketing system. And the way we develop those integrations today is through REST API calls. And every API call, if you're familiar, has a specific endpoint. And the action, the work to that endpoint is specific to, am I getting information, am I pushing information, etc. And so as a development company, we get to decide with you what kind of action down to the very specifics the agent should do. So when you layer on you having the right permissions involved and the right authentications involved, and again, that's where LogicSpeak would come in, you wouldn't have to worry about that. But you have to do it with all that in mind. And I think if you're talking to anyone that's building these agents, that they should know that as default. Because what you don't want is just to have an agent where it just decides on its own completely. Those are coming, and those will get better. But we see a ton of value between combining standard business process automation with these large language models. Microsoft calls them generative AI answers. That's in the workflow we make. And then when we need to, we'll give it some autonomy to make a decision. Otherwise, we can control the decisions.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The second part to the next question from Stephen was, you mentioned data shared with Copilot is grounded in your company. Is that true with the default no licensed Copilot in Windows?
The default no license, so like the free version. I
guess so.
That, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, like I think the only thing from the free version of Copilot is like you get access to the browser capabilities basically. So if you use Bing, you get to use the search capabilities within it, and you can use a chat window. There is some security built into it, but to my knowledge, what I know, and if I'm missing this answer, let me know. What I know is that if you're using the free version of Copilot and you try to tag something in your grounded data, so in that example, when we showed the demo to say it goes and fetches this document or go to Relay Cloud, it will not know any of that information.
Yeah.
The free version. It's only the paid version that will know how to retrieve that information within your Microsoft Graph.
Hopefully that was helpful, Stephen. And the other thing I was going to mention is like going back to best practices, things like ChatGPT and some of the other free AI tools, or just the cheaper AI tools that are out there that are using OpenAI and a large language model. It is not recommended to grab a document that's specific to your organization, paste it into ChatGPT, and have it do some work and create some slides. Speak on that a little bit, because sometimes the lines get blurred and you're like, well, I do it in Copilot, I'm just going to do it in ChatGPT. Why is it important to compartmentalize that?
Yeah, because, well, quite frankly, the only time you can make it anonymous data or temporary, they call it temporary chat within ChatGPT, is if you click the button. I don't know that I trust that is not learning off the data.
Sure.
But regardless, your employee has to know to click that every time they use it. You have no controls. There's no controls that you have over that. So it's up to the employee when they use ChatGPTs or any consumer grade tool to decide what the large language model is learning off and what it's not learning off. And I don't think we want to give that level of decision making down to our employees. We should decide on how we control that data from the beginning. And the great thing about Microsoft Copilot, it is built with that in mind. So it never learns off the data. You don't have to worry about someone hitting a button for what's a temporary chat or what's not, but with those consumer grade tools, you have to do that.
Yeah. Awesome. The last question we're going to answer here live from the chat is from Wendy, and then we're going to say goodbye to all of you and hope that you have a great Masters weekend. Wendy asked, what is the most common pitfall and or feedback when people or companies start implementing Copilot?
Yeah, so I think mass adoption, like fast adoption. I think a lot of people think, well, I need to buy this for my whole company, and that would be great. But I think the reality is you need to have a plan in place where you can make sure people use it. Because after all, if you're a decision maker for your company, you want a return on your investment. And how you figure that out is within Copilot, it actually provides graphs of usage. How often they're using these Copilots to show that people are using the tools. And so I think there has to be intention with how they use these. You can't just turn on the license and expect that it's going to run. I think that's there's some misunderstanding with that. Like,
Sure.
Let me buy it, I'm good to go. Like, no, I would encourage you to make sure your employees are using it, and Microsoft provides you with this diagram, right, or this graph that helps you understand that they are using it. So, but it really starts at the top. Like I use that example of a Shopify CEO.
Yeah.
As a leader in a company, if that's you have to be the one to push down the message and make sure that your team is using it. Because on the other end of that, you've got an employee that can be as productive as 2, maybe 3 in the role, right? And so there's something in it for you, and there's something in it for them. And so my encouragement in that is to definitely make sure that people are using it, use the tools that show you that they're using it, bring in companies like mine or, Logic Speak to help train on that if you need help,
Yep.
or identify someone that can be a train the trainer, because it might be something that you have to do for a recurring basis as you add more licenses or as people need refreshers on the capabilities of the technology.
Sure.
Yep.
And then the only thing to maybe tack on to that in terms of pitfalls is just the security thing that we've talked about, is just making sure that you have the right permissions and security in place, that everyone doesn't have access to every document. And so when you issue the license, you're confident that that security is in place for your organization to protect you, protect your data, protect your customers' data, and so on. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We really appreciate you guys tuning in for our first inaugural webinar in the Logic Speak studios. Don, thank you again for being a part of this. I really appreciate you and what work you do, but also just who you are as a person. So thank you. Hope you guys have an awesome Masters weekend. Enjoy it. And we hope to talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you.